You ever think about how one video game could completely change an entire genre? Like, not just improve it, not just add something cool, but actually force the entire industry to react to it? Because that's what happened with Mortal Kombat. And the funny part is, nobody expected it. In fact, when it first came out, it was basically just another arcade fighting game, until it wasn't. And by the end of this video, you'll see how one game didn't just change fighting games, it changed gaming as a whole. So before Mortal Kombat existed, fighting games were honestly pretty simple. You had those Street Fighter style fighters where everything was pretty clean. You had the bright colors, the cartoon style fighters, simple punches, kicks, and special moves. There was nothing really too extreme. It was more like, hey, let's practice against each other. Let's practice our skill in an arcade. That was basically it. There was no real story focus. There was no cinematic anything. Just two characters punching each other until someone wins and maybe a little backstory with the character, but that's it. And at the time, that worked perfectly fine. Arcades were booming and people just wanted a quick competition. But there was only one problem nobody really thought about yet. Fighting games were starting to feel kind of similar, like different versions of the same idea, and that's where things started to shift, because in 1992, a game shows up that looks familiar, but feels completely wrong in a way people couldn't explain yet, and that game was Mortal Kombat. When Mortal Kombat first showed up in arcades, people noticed something immediately. It didn't look like other fighting games because instead of bright cartoon colors, it used digitized real actors and dark, gloomy colors. Actual people filmed doing martial arts moves, and that turned into video game sprites, like the characters that you play in the game. And at the time, that was kind of insane because suddenly the characters didn't feel like cartoons anymore. They felt more like real fighters. But that wasn't even the big thing yet. The big thing came after you won a match, and that was fatalities. Now, if you ever seen them before, fatalities were basically just finishing moves where you could basically destroy your opponent in the most over-the-top way possible, and I really mean over-the-top. And that's where Mortal Kombat did something genius and controversial at the same time. It didn't just reward you for winning, it rewarded you for showing off, for being like a dick and wanting to kill your opponent in really fun ways. And it sounds good on paper, it sounds really fun, but at the time it shocked people. Like, imagine walking into an arcade, playing a fighting game, winning a match, and then suddenly the game goes, hey, wanna rip this guy's spine out? Yeah, that's the level we're talking about. And obviously, people noticed very quickly. So when Mortal Kombat started to blow up, arcades loved it, players loved it, but at the same time, the reaction outside of gaming is basically panic. Parents of children start seeing clips of this game and thinking, okay, yeah, this is a problem. You know, what if my son turns out to be like this and tries to rip his brother's head off? News outlets start to pick it up. Politicians even start talking about it. And suddenly, Mortal Kombat is at the center of this huge debate about violence in video games. Now, here's the funny part. A lot of people who were criticizing it probably never even played it. They just seen clips of the game. And those clips were, yeah, not exactly subtle. So the backlash grows, and it gets so big that it actually leads to something major happening in the video game history, and that's the creation of the ESRB rating system. That's right, every one of you knows it. Video game age ratings that basically exist in the form that we know today, partially because of Mortal Kombat. So even if people were arguing about it at the time, the impact was undeniable. Mortal Kombat didn't just make a controversial game, it changed how games were regulated forever up until this day. That's why you see E, T, M, all these different ratings, which is kind of insane if you think about it. And after Mortal Kombat, fighting games started to evolve, and not just because everyone copied it directly, but because it changed expectations. Players started wanting more impact. They wanted more personality and more intensity from these games. So you start seeing fighting games slowly shift. Hits felt heavier, animations became more dramatic, characters became more iconic. But here's the thing. Most games didn't go as extreme as Mortal Kombat. They took the idea of the intensity of it, but toned it down for competitive balance. Meanwhile, Mortal Kombat doubled down. It didn't try to become more technical. It leaned even harder into the spectacle of it. And that decision basically defined its identity going forward. Because while other fighting games were trying to be precise, Mortal Kombat was trying to be memorable. And that difference still exists today. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with the direction of Mortal Mortal Kombat right now or not, you can't deny the fact that it is one of the most recognizable fighting games in America, probably the most popular fighting game in NA. Now here's where things really start getting interesting, because over time Mortal Kombat didn't stay one consistent thing. It kept changing. Sometimes it was fast and aggressive, sort of like MK9 and MKX. Sometimes it was slower and more cinematic, maybe like MK11. And sometimes it focused on story, maybe like the 3D era games. And sometimes it focused on mechanics like the newer games. Every few games it kind of resets itself. And that's actually one of the most unique things about the franchise, whether your views on it are positive or negative. For example, newer entries like Mortal Kombat 1 basically reboot the entire timeline again. So instead of evolving into a straight line like other fighting games, Mortal Kombat kind of rebuilds itself repeatedly, which could be cool depending on your view of the story, but it also creates confusion in the community because players never fully know what version of Mortal Kombat they're gonna get next. Fast, slow, competitive, cinematic, it always shifts, and that constant change is both its strength and its biggest criticism. This is where the community kind of splits in two. On one side, you have casual players. They love Mortal Kombat for exactly what it is, and it is exactly why people get into Mortal Kombat in the first place. Fatalities, brutalities, friendships, characters, story, fun, chaos. But on the other side, you have the competitive players, the players that stay, and they see things differently because Mortal Kombat tends to focus more on pressure and guessing situations, where other games focus more on spacing, precision, and neutral control, kind of like how Tekken is. So if you get this long-running debate within the franchise, is Mortal Kombat a deep competitive fighter, or is it just like a casual cinematic fighting experience? And honestly, that answer depends on what you want from it, because Mortal Kombat was never trying to be the most technical fighting game ever. It was trying to be the most dramatic one, and that's why the debate never really ends. And this is why it still matters, because even now you could see Mortal Kombat's influence everywhere. Modern fighting games all include some level of cinematic presentation. You could look at the modern Street Fighters and Tekkens. They have this open world tours and story modes basically from Mortal Kombat, right? Story modes are basically expected now with fighting games, right? It feels incomplete without them. You have finishers and dramatic endings like arcade mode endings, like how Mortal Kombat did too. Character identity matters more than ever, like actually building a backstory around their character, and that all traces back to Mortal Kombat, pushing things farther than anyone else was willing to do at the time. Because before Mortal Kombat, fighting games were mostly about competition, but after Mortal Kombat, they became entertainment experiences, and that shift is still shaping games today. So when you look at Mortal Kombat today, it is easy to see it as just another fighting game franchise, or it's going downhill, or you know, Mortal Kombat sucks now, whatever you want to say about it. But it's not really just that. It's one of the reasons why the entire genre evolved the way it did. It changed how games were rated, it changed how violence is presented, it changed what fighting games are allowed to be, and whether you love it or not, you kind of have to have that respect towards it, of how much it changed everything. Because without Mortal Kombat, fighting games wouldn't look the way they do today, not even close. And this is how Mortal Kombat changed fighting games forever. But anyways, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. If you like this style of video, make sure you comment down what other videos I should do next, or what other games you would like to see me do analysis on. I do anything analysis, reviews, playthroughs, etc, etc. And we just like to tell a story, no over editing BS, because, you know, I don't want to memeify or brain rot my videos, right? Anyways, yeah, if you like that style of stuff, make sure you comment down below, like, share, do all that stuff, and most importantly, subscribe and join the Frosty Flames Legion. We're almost at 1,700 subs, so make sure you enlist now and join. Anyways, thank y'all for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.